Wow. What a great job those kids do. Let's hear it again from the Streator High School Band. At this time, I'd like to ask Mayor Lansford to stand up and say a few words.
Thank you, Dave. Everybody hear me? I think after that last graduation of the Streator High School Band, Mr. Paulus would more appropriately trusty grade as maybe do the bandy instead of representing our own Honey Boy Elvis. But anyhow, congratulations to the band. Great. As you all know, we're at the end of our closing 150-year celebration with history of the city of Streator, Illinois. Most cities love to say that we're special, we're unique, we have something that nobody else has. And you know, a group that gets together on a regular basis is referred to primarily as the South County Mayors Association. And basically, I narrow that down to primarily a municipal buyers club meeting of the cities of Streator, the South County. Because everybody's trying to brag and say what they have, what they don't have, and where you fall into that gamut. We all know that every city basically has the same things. They have city halls, they have police departments, fire departments, they have citizens, they have churches, they have schools, healthcare. But the thing that makes somebody different is its history. And Streator has a unique history. And I think that Dave hit on it more than once in his comments. And that is the thing that Streator has that others strive to have is its generous nature, its compassion, its willingness for volunteerism, and the community that surrounds an effort to get behind it and makes things happen. Not all communities have that ability to do that. And that's what makes Streator unique. Now, today we're going to be putting these artifacts you see on the table here in the front into the capsule in this box here. And every lot is secured for 25 years. The next individuals from the community will open that box, look at those things, community of Streator, Illinois, and some will say because they've seen all the value to them, it may be that something that this city has strived for and has achieved, or it may be something that is bigger and growing, continue to grow, keep Streator alive, and Streator to be viable into the future. There's this much about $5 for a guest. It's okay to buy in the street. It's been a privilege this year to be involved in all of these events that have taken place that have strived to bring Streator together as a community. And definitely, the individuals that have left Streator and back to Streator, maybe have visited here for the first time ever, but the comments have been almost unanimous with the fact that what is the city doing, because it is a vibrant, people seem upbeat, people seem to say it's a can-do city. And like I said, I've been proud to be a part of that effort. And I want to thank Dave and Jack and Jamie for all of their efforts on this committee to bring all of these events together this year. And even though weather has threatened, we have survived. We've gotten through it. It's a little warm up here today, but other than that, it's great. So thank you very much.
That kind of sums up Streator's history. We've gotten through it, we've survived, and everything's great. Now I would like to ask my old friend, I won't call him old, my friend Greg Tullis to perform Honey Boy Evans' greatest hit, In the Good Old Summertime.
Thank you very much. I am, of course, feeling quite overdressed than the rest of everyone here in the park this afternoon, but I'm honored to be representing on this weekend Streator's first nationally recognized and admired entertainers by the name of George Evans. He and his family are buried in Riverview Cemetery. And I this weekend had the opportunity to bring George Honey Boy Evans back to life. He was born in 1870. He worked in the coal mines alongside his father. He felt that that was not a career he wanted to make. He worked for a time as a printer's apprentice at the Streator Independent Times, and at the age of 21, after a lot of encouragement and coaxing, he moved to Chicago to try to get his start in the field of entertainment. And he auditioned for a minstrel show singing I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen. He was hired on the spot and was in that night's show, and he sang I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen for the next 28 weeks. He eventually ventured out on his own, starting his own 45-man minstrel troupe, traveling across the country. Through hard economic times, he had to close the show, he had bills to pay, he had performers he had to pay, so he put together a one-man show, took it on the road, was able to be making around $2,000 a week. This was in the early 1900s when coal miners here in Streator were only making about $5 a week. So he made enough money, paid off his troupe, and all the outstanding bills, and they went back out on the road. And no matter where he performed, he always let it be known, whether they were in New York or Boston or St. Louis or Detroit, he always let it be known where he was from, because he wanted to see whether or not there were any people in the audience who had a connection to Streator. And he was always thrilled to find out that invariably, despite these other larger cities that they were performing, there were people that knew where Streator, Illinois was. And he always made it a point to return at least once a year to perform at the Plum Opera House. He also loved baseball. He took his 45-man troupe and organized a baseball team that they would perform a charity baseball game the afternoon prior to them performing that evening in those cities. And in one particular game in 1912 in Cincinnati, George Evans was playing second base. A hard ball was thrown to him. He missed the ball. It hit him in the stomach, and he suffered excruciating pain. He later discovered that he had ruptured his spleen, and it did not get properly taken care of at that time. And being the entertainer that he was, he felt that the show must go on. So even though he was in excruciating pain, he said, the show must go on and I'm going to continue to perform. His last performance in Streator was in 1914, and he died the spring of 1915 at the age of 45. He got his nickname because of a song that he wrote called I'll Be True to Your Honey Boy. But one of his most popular songs, which the critics told him at the time, this thing is never going to sell because it was seasonal. It would be like writing a Christmas song that would only be performed at Christmas time. But he still wrote it and hoped for the best. And that song is, of course, In the Good Old Summertime. It was first performed in Baltimore by a performer by the name of Blanche Ring in a show called The Defender. And the first time that she sang it, the audience instantly fell in love with it and stopped the show and insisted that she do an encore of that number before the show continued. That's how popular it instantly became. George Honeyboy Evans is memorialized in several different ways at our Streator Elks Lodge, which is right here on the corner of Park and Hickory Streets. The lodge room on the second floor is named in his memory. There is a very nice plaque out in the front of the Elks facing this park with a little history on George Honeyboy Evans. And this summer, the Wall Dogs created a mural in memory of George Honeyboy Evans, which is on the south wall of the Streator Elks Lodge. And now with that, in his memory and in celebration of Streator's 150th anniversary, I'd like to perform for you In the Good Old Summertime. In the good old summertime, in the good old summertime, strolling through the shady lane with your baby mine, you hold her hand and she holds yours, and that's a very good sign that she's your tootsie wootsie in the good old summertime. Now, if all of you could join me one more time. In the good old summertime, in the good old summertime, strolling through the shady lane with your baby mine, you hold her hand and she holds yours, and that's a very good sign that she's your tootsie wootsie in the good old summertime. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. That was wonderful. I don't think that surprised anybody. Right now, I'd like to talk a little bit about our time capsule. As you can see, we've got a lot of things